Welcome everyone. So this is an editorial of Indian Express newspaper. Step back from water's edge. India's response to presence of Chinese military vessels in Indian Ocean needs to be more calibrated. So there is a news that Chinese ship Yon Wang 5 has been deployed to Sri Lankan port of Hambantota, and there is a concern because that particular ship is not a carrier ship, it is not a normal uh, gunpoint ship, but it is a spy ship, it is a tracking ship which can track up to 750 kilometers. So let's have a look. Reports about the impending visit of a Chinese spy ship Yuan Wang 5 to the Sri Lankan port of Hambantota created a major flutter in the Indian media, citing the ship's lethal capabilities means destructive capabilities, and aerial reach of more than 750 kilometers. It has an aerial reach of 750 kilometers, means it can track up to 750 kilometers. And the distance between the southern point of India and the Hambantota port, which is on Sri Lanka, is only 150 kilometers. And in the southern part of the India, there are so many ports, there are so many, there's ISRO and Navy, naval bases. So there's a concern about that. 750 kilometers, fears have been expressed that atomic research centers like ISRO within Indian borders could be snooped upon, spied upon. Reflecting concerns at the highest levels in New Delhi, social media fired unkind comments about India's emergency economic assistance to an ungrateful Sri Lanka. As India has given economic assistance to Sri Lanka because Sri Lanka has been have in the deep economic crisis and currently is facing economic crisis. Next, reports that Sri Lanka has asked for a delay in the Chinese ship's arrival may temporarily calm the waters and provide respite for a dispassionate examination of the issue through legal, military, and diplomatic lenses. Now, Sri Lanka has uh, delayed that arrival of the Chinese ship. But before that, a quick look at the ship's provenance is in order. Provenance means what's the ship origin, what is the known history and features. So this is Yuan Wang's features, which is basically, you can read it, it's of little importance. From the legal perspective, the 1982 UN Convention for Law of the Seas, it permits unfettered, means uncontrolled freedom of navigation on the high seas, and a foreign warship has a much right to be in the Indian Ocean, means a foreign warship have to navigate on the Indian Ocean as similar that Indian vessel would be in the South China Sea. Even in the 200-mile exclusive economic zone, there exists the conditional right of innocent passage of all vessels, including warships. Entry into foreign ports, especially for warships, has to be with prior consent. Like the entry of the this particular Chinese ship is being with the prior consent. Chinese take consent from the Sri Lanka. But even in wartime in 1907, Hague Convention permits entry for warships of belligerents. Belligerents means a nation or a person who is engaged in war or conflict. So in the wartime, it can permit entry of warships into neutral ports for limited durations. Given its cordial, friendly diplomatic relations, China has a friendly relation with China has a friendly relation with Sri Lanka, and its economic dependence on China, there could be no plausible reason for Sri Lanka to deny entry for Yuan Wang 5, especially into Hambantota, on which China has a 99-year lease. So Hambantota port, which is basically on China, which is basically on Sri Lanka, and Sri Lanka has given uh, 99-year lease to China has given loan. China has given loan to Sri Lanka for a 99-year lease. Viewed from the security angle, the presence of a research ship like the Yuan Wang 5, bristling with multi-spectral surveillance and eavesdropping devices in India's vicinity, India's closeness, certainly calls for vigilance, careful watch, and caution. How, in this age of transparency, regular electronic snooping, spying by ships, aircraft, and satellites, both friendly and hostile, unfriendly, happens all the time. Our armed forces and other agencies are very well aware of this, and precautionary policies and procedures related to that particular electronic emissions and missile firing trials are already in place. One can also be sure that position and movements of Yuan Wang 5, as long as she is in our waters, will be closely followed by Indian navies. What is the diplomatic aspect coming from it? So there was already an ship 2014 submarine PLA navies which had docked in Colombo, to be followed a few weeks later by a port call by a Type 091 nuclear powered attack submarine. Sri Lankan government had then brushed aside India's concerns, describing that the ship visit as a usual practice, with the Chinese communique had, with unintended flippancy, stated that the submarines were en route to Gulf of Aden for anti-piracy duty. So it is of 2014 visit of a submarine in which Sri Lanka government said India that it is normal, usual practice, and it basically set aside the India's concerns. Some in India have viewed the forthcoming visit of the Chinese spy ship to Hambantota as an infringement of the 1987 Indo-Sri Lankan Accord, which basically calls upon the two countries that two countries should not allow the respective territories to be used for activities prejudicial to each other's unity, integrity, and security. However, Colombo has often acknowledged that the security and economic interests of both India and Sri Lanka are interlinked, and if there is security concern, like Colombo has already recognized, if there is a security concern in India, it will affect Colombo, it will affect Sri Lanka as well. Intellect and any deliberate actions that harm Indian interests will eventually rebound on it. As we await further developments, there is a need to reflect on Sri Lanka's current political meltdown and dire economic crisis. Given its geographic proximity and ethnic connection, India cannot allow Sri Lanka to sink, because Sri Lanka is in a deep economic crisis. New Delhi has already rendered substantial help. It has given humanitarian assistance to Sri Lanka to cope up with the current crisis, but with the best of intentions, India has neither the economic wherewithal nor political capital to pull Sri Lanka out of the abyss. Abyss means a difficult situation which is in Sri Lanka. Therefore, apart from the IMF, China will also have to lend a hand for Sri Lanka's economic recovery. For this to happen, Colombo will need to kowtow to Beijing, and India must show diplomatic forbearance. Some other issues germane to this discussion needed to be noted by India's decision makers. First, India must face the reality that with its 350 warship strong battle force having overtaken the US Navy, like China has achieved its ambition of becoming a maritime great power. China has crossed US Navy in terms of maritime great power. China's 2019 Defense White Paper charges the PLA Navy with the responsibility of safeguarding Xi Jinping's prized maritime Silk Road that spans the Indian Pacific and includes China-Pakistan Economic Corridor CPEC, which is basically passed from the China, Pakistan and other countries. The string of ports created by China in India's neighborhood are meant to undergird this endeavor. As China has a lot of ports around the Indian Ocean region, it has either taken on a lease or it has half partnership in that. So it is a basic concern for India. Thus, until India can bolster its economic and maritime power and perhaps enforce its version of Monroe Doctrine, it is a basically doctrine which was adopted by US in the past. It will have to live with frequent planned presence in the Indian Ocean. PLA Navy's presence. We must also prepare for the day when the Taiwan situation permits China to station an aircraft carrier battle group in our waters. So there is also a tension between China and Taiwan. So it will station aircraft carrier battle group in our waters, means in the Indian Ocean region. So there is also a concern. So we must prepare for that day. The second issue that deserves our attention is the intense activity of China's space program. China space program, which has planned 50 space launches for 2022. In mid-April, 3 Chinese astronauts returned to Earth after spending 6 months abroad their 11-year-old space station. And June 2022, another spacecraft took a team of 3 astronauts to dock with the under construction Tiangong 3 space station. Doing such a space activity, survey research ships need to be positioned for control and tracking as well as rescue tasks in dispersed oceanic locations ranging from mid-Pacific and South Indian Ocean to the coast of Africa. So this is basically about China's achievements in the space program. And next is, while the actual mission of Yuan Wang is not known, Wang 5 is not known, it is just possible that she may be on a legitimate space related assignment. Finally, let us remember that ISRO also has an ambitious manned space program underway. ISRO has a manned space program which is Gaganyaan, in which 3 persons will be sent to space for 7 days. So it is a great achievement as it is the first manned space program, or will be undertaking the test flights of its Agni series of intercontinental ballistic missiles over distant oceanic stretches. India too will seek to deploy research vessels in distant waters, ports in days ahead. So India basically should deploy research vessels in water, ports in days ahead. In fact, it is deploying for the concern related to that particular ship.